Guys, I'm teaming up with my good friend, retired Navy SEAL Jocko, and we're going to do something very special. Jocko started Jocko Fuel after finding out some of the supplements that he was buying for his family were filled with heavy metals and ingredients he wasn't aware of. He wanted a line of supplements and consumables that had all of the good, effective ingredients and none of the bad. So, he made it happen. I got set up with all of the key products, and I want to do the same for you. Jocko Go. They are energy drinks for clean, sustainable energy. Jocko Milk Protein for 30 grams of delicious grass-fed protein, plus a whole line of supplements to support mood, focus, hydration, and more. Jocko Fuel supplements are scientifically formulated and made with ingredients that are clinically tested. They are better for you options with no added sugar or artificial sweeteners and no gray area ingredients or banned substances. It is clean fuel without compromise, and right now you can get 20% off when you use the promo code Chael at JockoFuel.com or just click on the link below. Benoit Saint Denis versus Dustin Poirier is on. After briefly, apparently, having been off. Now, I don't know if I love this or if I hate this. I'm a little bit torn. I mean, on one hand, at 155 pounds, we have stars. Dustin Poirier is amongst the biggest stars in the UFC. In fact, in Conor's absence, it's hard to know who the biggest star is. And for a period of time, it was George Masvidal. But when George Masvidal left, it now follows directly and without question on Nate Diaz. The problem there, that extends to Nick. The problem there is it was very unclear if they were ever going to fight in the organization again. Nate would do a good job of showing up. Nick has stayed in the pool. Do I have that right? That's the way the story's been told to all of us. That Nick, after his return fight against Robbie Lawler, wanted another return fight. Wanted to pick a weight class and wanted to be busy. And I know the years have flown by, but I still got to put them in it. Well, once you remove anybody named Diaz and once you remove anybody named Masvidal, in the absence of McGregor, who is the sport's biggest draw? Who would you guys say? Adesanya certainly had a good run and a good push. Strickland is coming out of nowhere. Duplessis is coming out of nowhere, but that's as of 2 weeks ago. So who has it been? Dustin Poirier. That's your answer. Dustin Poirier is that massive of a star. Now, when I talk about the stars at 155 pounds, which I believe to also be the most difficult division, not just in this organization, any organization in our industry, 155 pounds, UFC is the hardest division to become champion at. That is the most coveted belt. But when you have those 5 stars, you've got about 15 really good fighters. But 10 of those really good fighters can't get the recognition because they can't get on the docket with the 5 stars. Now, Justin Gaethje extended that. He extended it to Fitzaev, and that was supposed to be the night that Fitzaev moved up and Gaethje moves out. Turns out Gaethje was a little too good. Tony Ferguson had to give the shot. He gave that to Charles Oliveira. Turned out Oliveira was good enough to come in, grab that spot. Proved to be one of the more popular fighters, also proved to be one of the more talented fighters. So everybody's number comes up eventually where they get brought in to do the JOB. You're either going to prove that you belong here or you are going to pass the torch and gets moved out. That's just the way this business is. But Benoit Saint Denis' number comes up to take on Dustin Poirier. Dustin Poirier says, I'll do it. Now, one of the reasons it was concerning for me is there is nothing as important as your placement on a card. So to have the sport's biggest star, and that's broad, right? That's a broad stroke. But he just might be. You could bring in your O'Malley's and you can find out how active Izzy wants to be, but you're going to be right there. And to have one of your biggest stars and you're automatically demoting him, you're putting him in a co-main spot. So that is like some kind of an elbow and a wink amongst the guys in the industry. Oh, no, but we're going to make it 5 rounds. It's going to be a 5-round co-main event. So that's the same thing as the main event. No, it's not. That's silly. That's a way of getting a guy to work 70% more for not paying him anymore. And that's their business. But I'm just sharing with you, it's not the same as being a main event. And if you win there, your built-in reward is not the same as having a win in a main event. And if you lose there, your built-in reward is not the same. The fall is not the same in a co-main spot. And that was the part that surprised me. I don't have a problem with it. If it was me personally, I'd have signed the contract and gone off and done it. I wouldn't have cared less about any of these fine points. I'm either good enough to keep it there or I'm not, and I would have risked that any time in my own career. That doesn't mean that as I sit back, I wouldn't be smart enough to know and smart enough to observe it, and to know that whoever's telling me, oh no, it's equal, we're even gonna let you go out there for 25 minutes, is doing anything more than trying to get a good hustle off of my back. So they come out with the announcement. I never heard Denis say anything about it. Denis had put out a training video, and he looked like he's doing some pretty good training. I remember there was this next exercise, and the headline was like, yeah, Poirier fans had better be worried about this training video. But I never heard Denis specifically talking about Poirier. And if he did, I missed it. And Poirier never came out that I saw. He did confirm the fight, but he never really came out and talked about the fight, or how we got here, or what this is about, or why these two are fighting, or how these two got aligned. And I'll settle for anything. I mean, I watched Thiago got a fight with Rashad back in the day, all because Thiago gave Rashad a smirk in the back. And Rashad said he thought that smirk meant, I want to fight you. And when they went to Thiago, Thiago didn't deny it. And they main evented that, and it worked. We don't even have a smirk as to why Dustin and Benoit Saint Denis are fighting. So when it gets announced by Dustin that they're not, that announcement was premature, I never signed a bout agreement, we didn't come to terms, which meant I'm not getting enough money. 24 hours goes by, comes out again by Dustin. I jumped the gun. Hadn't been able to get a hold of my manager for a few days. Turns out we did agree to this fight. See you all in Miami. Okay. So we're right back where we started, and I don't think that there's any foul here. But I imagine if I had bought a ticket to be live in Miami, I'm going to want to see Dustin Poirier. I mean, that is a massive attraction. That's not just a fun guy to watch fight. That's not just a skilled fighter. That's not just a guy that's got a long lineage and history in the sport. That's not just a guy that spent a lot of time in Florida training specifically and built some real relationships. He is also an attraction. And whether he can cling to that torch the way that Gaethje did when Gaethje got put in this spot, or whether he's going to pass some of that shine like Tony Ferguson did when it was his number, right? I mean, it's just the business. It's just an ebb and a flow. That day is coming at some point. But aside from all of these wonderful things, you have an attraction. And it was a very big deal that the UFC get that straightened out. And they let everybody know what the clarity was. You don't want to do what Nick Diaz refers to as selling wolf tickets. And card is always subject to change. But if you have a card and you're announcing fights as important as a co-main for over a month, and it turns out you don't have a name on a dotted line, you're going to have some hurt feelings. Which is not what happened here, but it gave the appearance of that. So, when Poirier says, I hadn't spoke to my manager, we hadn't come to terms. Okay, I have now spoke to my manager. Turns out we did agree on terms. What exactly is he talking about? What exactly are those terms? I'm not aware of anything on this fight other than two guys that are going to go out in fight. I'm not aware of anything else. Is that all it's about? Maybe. Is it about a dollar amount to go out into a co-main event spot? Is it about a dollar amount? Maybe. Or is there a little sugar on top of that? Is it about getting contendership back? I think that Dustin has ever been as strong of an argument as Justin to be a number one contender. And I realize if we were going to have that debate today, that Gaethje is going to get the nod because of head-to-head competition. Well, they've gone head-to-head twice. There were stoppages both times. They split them both times. What happens if Justin is to lose to Max at 300? Does Max become the guy? Because Poirier probably going to want to have a word about that. Or are they looking for all new fresh? But like, these are just questions. These aren't things that you can get all guarantees to. These aren't things that you can sit down with Dana and go, well, if I win, but this guy loses, and this guy, you can't do all those things. I understand that, but he's the one that brought up terms. He's the one that used the word terms. So if it's money, say money. If it's not money and it's terms and has something else to do with it, then what is riding on this fight? I wasn't excited for it when it got announced. I wasn't disappointed when it got unannounced. I don't get excited and unexcited for any co-main event. So what were the terms? What is the big deal here? What is it that we have to talk about? What behind the scenes special was sprinkled and put on Poirier versus Benoit Saint Denis in the first place?